just seemed to be the right time this last year, and the Hall of Fame accepted it with open arms.
Is it the first book?
It's my first book, and it's
in the Hall of Fame.
In the Hall of Fame at Cooperstown. This is just a book that's been put in the library, but it was just unique because it's a Christian book about a baseball player that's not in the Hall of Fame, but his story is. And it's because of the story. Because they said there's so many kids who want to come into our Hall of Fame, and we want to share with them a book that talks about what baseball's really supposed to be about.
Having fun.
Having fun.
You know, even with the little kids, I noticed, you know, the dads are pushing them and this and that. But if you don't go out and have fun, then you might as well hang it up. Yeah. My little grandson, they had to teach him it has to be about fun. Right. Because if it's anything else, just hang it up. That's right. They're too little for that. No, it's true. And I've got a piece in that book about my father and a relationship with me in the backyard and how important that is to have that relationship. Well, tell me about that a little bit. Well, he was worked in soil conservation, so he worked 14 hours a day, and I would always have 2 gloves and 1 ball waiting for him when he got home. And for 14 years, he never turned me down. And well, it was probably good relaxation for him. Well, you know what's funny? He caught the ball. We didn't talk about baseball much. We talked about how was it in school, Dick? How you doing? And how's the dating game when I got older? And we just talked about life. And it was such a great thing, and that's one reason when I see movies like The Field of Dreams, I still cry when he says, "You want to play catch?" Yeah. Because my father did that. And I still remember that, and that's why I did that for my son. And that's why my son is on the cover as a 9-year-old. Oh, this is your son? As a 9-year-old. And there's a story behind that, too. What is the story behind it? The chapter on bottom, called The Bottom Line, in chapter 8, talks about me having a chance to be a pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers Old Timers Classic in San Antonio, and I was going to pitch against some of the guys. My son's never seen me pitch before, and so this was my day in the sun to show my son that I used to pitch. Well, I got mobbed for autographs when I come through the gate. He gets pushed aside, and when we finally get to the mound on our way to the dugout, he looks at me and he says, "What were they doing that for?" And I told him, and he says, "Get this straight. You're just my daddy." And at that point, I knelt to my knees, hugged him, and I said, "Son, I'm proud of that. Thank you for bringing me down to reality. I love you." And there's fans in the stands wondering what I'm doing, and I stood up, put my Cardinal jersey on him, and told him to stand on the mound and look up. And he said, "What for?" And I said, "I have no idea. Just do it." 1994, I took that picture. In 2008, my publisher asked, "Do you have a kid looking up?" And you had it. We're going to talk more about this in a minute. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Dick Lefty O'Neill had a dream of playing Major League Baseball, but it never came. However, today he holds the distinction of being the only white baseball player to pitch for 2 teams in the Negro Leagues. In Dreaming of the Majors, Living in the Bush, Dick O'Neill recounts the journey he took to nurture his dream of playing in the majors, and the people God brought into his life to help shape that dream, and the unexpected twists that came along the way. Enjoy this unique story of journey through the Negro Leagues with Dick Lefty O'Neill. Dreaming of the Majors, Living in the Bush is available for this buy-the-book offer of $14.99. Simply call 888-725-8033. Request offer number 263. That's 888-725-8033. Request offer number 263. Buy the book today. If you would like to receive your copy of today's edition of Buy the Book, please be sure to call 888-725-8033 and ask for today's offer number on the screen. DVDs are $14.95 plus shipping and handling and come with 4 total episodes per DVD. Order your DVD of Buy the Book today and call 888-725-8033.
Welcome back. We've been having a wonderful time talking with Dick Lefty O'Neill, who wrote a book, Dreaming of the Majors, Living in the Bush. And you were telling me about your son's picture on this book and how it got there. Now, here you go to the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. You have a shirt that they gave you, evidently.
Well, the Cardinals gave
It's
me.
Cardinals.
Yeah, we're playing against the Dodgers old-timers ball players,
Okay.
and so I'm playing against them. And when I got to that mound, I told him to get on the mound and look up, and he couldn't understand why. And I said, just do it. I have no idea. Just do it. And then in 2008, when my publisher said, do you want to keep that title? And I said, yes, because I promised people for 10 years that I was going to write a book, and that's going to be my title. And then they said, well, do you have a kid on the mound looking up anywhere? I took one picture in 1994, and in 2008, that's the picture.
That's the picture.
And in the sky, you'll see four images look like birds. There are 4 guardian angels in the sky around my son, and I talk about those guardian angels in the book.
Tell me about them.
Well, there's 3 of them that have passed on. I argued that one of them is still alive, and that's my wife. But 3 of them are all key players in my life, molded me as a Christian. Of course, one of them, and they're all people that were a part of my trek through baseball and just through life. One of them was Paul Anderson, the strongest man in the world back in the 60s Olympics. And he spoke to my Fellowship of Christian Athlete group in Arkansas when I was the president of FCA in my college there. And he set me on the floor one night and says, Dick, you're living a double life. You are, and he said, I don't know who you are, but I just feel like you're living a double life, that you're the president of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, but something's wrong. And so all night long, the strongest man in the world convicted me. And then the next day, he put me and 8 of the ball players on the table and spun us around like a top. And then he brings me up and puts his arm around me and says, this is my new brother in Christ, Dick ONealB. Paul has passed on, and when he left, he was still running a camp for orphan boys at his ranch, still doing what he's always wanted to do. And so, and he doesn't probably have an idea, I'm sure he does now, that he affected my life. There was a black ball player trying out for the Cincinnati Reds with me when I was in college. And I didn't want to be with anybody. I just wanted to be by myself. And he kept coming up and bugging me about, hey, let's play catch, let's play catch. And then he started asking me about my life and all kinds of things. And I said, I really don't want to talk about that right now. And then finally he just said, I just asked him, I said, what are you going to do if they don't make it? If you don't make it? He said, I don't really care. It's whatever Christ has in store for me. I heard that and I said, that's why I'm really here too. Why didn't I say that? Mm-hmm. And he got picked for the Cincinnati Reds. I didn't, and 3 months later died. And his brother asked me to be in his funeral as a pallbearer. And his brother came up to me and said, Roger wanted to tell me that he's waiting for me and that he's still praying for me and my salvation. So I only knew him for 24 hours. Okay, and then, there's several others that are experiences like that in the book. My mother and father were obviously, they died within 12 months of each other last year and never got to see the book in print. But the first part of this book is about my mother and father simply because of what they did is why I've done this. My father said, in 14 years old, I asked him, I said, Dad, why do you keep getting me books about Sandy Koufax and all these guys that are Hall of Famers? Why do you keep doing it? He says, because that's what you want to do someday. And I said, yes, but what if I don't make it? There's not a book out there for the people that don't make it. And he looked at me and said, well, son, you're going to write it.
There it is. You didn't make the Hall of Fame.
Not as a player.
But you made it in the book.
Absolutely.
And you played with an only white man on a black team.
Right.
And in their majors that they had in those days, you made it.
Yeah, I had a major league player from the 50s read my book and called me and says, Dick, never apologize for what you've done. He says, when we played Major League Baseball in the 50s, we wanted to play with black ball players, but we weren't allowed to. That was not the way society had it at the time.
Isn't that sad?
Yeah, and here you are, Dick. You got to live with them, travel with them, and love them, and play with them. And he said, that is a blessing, what you did. And I said, well, it's not near as much of a blessing of what I learned from them. And the guys that I hung with all the time in the Negro League, they are